My sister falsely accused me, leading to my imprisonment for years. And now that I've been released, I will repay everything I went through in the same coin. My sister has always been a troublesome person, and we all knew it. She didn't even finish high school because when she was attending, she simply decided to disappear for years with a boyfriend. And when they broke up, she came back and immediately started living with us again. My mother and father complained to her, but did no more than that. Obviously, this bothered me, and I told them several times, as I had already seen her take my things to sell several times. But they just said I should be patient and that they couldn't just kick my sister out of the house. However, one day, she eventually did something that I couldn't even imagine she would do. The police knocked on our door, saying that a person from my neighborhood a few days ago saw someone leaving her house carrying her personal belongings. She followed this person and saw that they entered my house. She was masked, so they didn't know who she was, but still they came to check the house with a warrant. We all already knew who had done this, and we just accepted them to enter since we didn't have much of a choice. And they searched the house. They went into my sister's room and incredibly found nothing. But to my surprise, when they removed one of the layers of my bed, they found several objects that matched the description of the objects in the report. So they took me to jail. When I looked at my sister, I already knew it was she who was hiding everything there while I didn't see. And despite that, she didn't seem repentant, and she even seemed to be smiling. I thought that anyway I would be released since that didn't prove anything. But to my surprise, some people who were robbed testified that it was indeed me who took the things. Maybe they did this out of anger and wanting someone to be arrested. Maybe they did this because I have the same height as my sister and could have been confused, I don't know. But in the end, I was convicted. 12 years in jail, a tarnished record. I lost my job at my college and my sister was free all this time. I ended up getting out this year, about 2 years earlier for good behavior. I never forgave my sister or my parents, as after a while, they didn't even believe that I was innocent. Even knowing my sister's personality. When I returned home, she was still living there. And since I didn't have a job or savings, I knew I would have to stay there too for a long time living with that person. But I had also decided that I wouldn't let her get away with it. I knew my sister wouldn't hide what she did because she thought that now that I had served my sentence, she couldn't be arrested for it anymore. So when my parents left, I went straight to talk to her. Even before I said anything, she started laughing and mocking how I ended up in jail for something she did and continues to do to this day. And I really couldn't believe how easy it was to get away with it. She even said that I should be careful because if I got distracted, she would hide her things in my bed again and I would be arrested again. However, what she didn't count on was that all this time I was recording everything secretly. I knew she would give herself up. I knew she wasn't ashamed of what she did. On the same day, I talked to a lawyer about it and he agreed to represent me, earning 20% of what I would win. I know this is more than usual, but I didn't have much choice. Not only will I sue her for falsely accusing me, but I will also reveal to the court that she admits to continuing to do these things. I will also logically sue the government for being unjustly imprisoned for so many years. I know I will make a lot of money in the end, but honestly, I just want justice. Because I know no amount of money in the world will recover the time I lost during all those years in prison for something I didn't do. The court notification will arrive tomorrow, and I am eager to see her face when I show that I recorded everything she said. After the notification arrived, the house descended into chaos. For the first time, my sister lost that arrogant demeanor. She tried to act like it wasn't a big deal, but I saw the panic in her eyes. She attempted to snatch the paper from my hand, but I already had copies stored away. "You're joking, right?" she said, with a nervous smile that fooled no one. "Do you really think you're going to get away with this?" I replied, "Everything you did is about to come to light. That smug attitude of yours will be your downfall." As expected, my parents jumped into the argument. My mother was furious, not at her, not at me, but at the situation. As always, she tried to minimize everything, insisting that I was overreacting and that this would destroy the family. My father, on the other hand, stayed quiet. He knew something was wrong, but always opted for silence to avoid conflict. That only fueled my anger. Years of his complacency, and now he stood there, mute, while I bore the brunt of it all. My sister began denying everything, screaming that I was crazy and that it was all a setup. But I knew she was scared. That's when she resorted to what she always did best: manipulation. She looked at our parents, tears welling up in her eyes, and said, "Are you really going to let him do this to me? He's trying to tear our family apart." Predictably, my mother caved. "You can't do this, son. She's your sister. Please think about what you're doing." But I didn't budge. "I've been thinking about this for 12 years, I said coldly. "Now, it's time for someone to pay." The following days were intense. My sister tried everything. First, she offered fake apologies. She cried, begged, and promised to change. When that didn't work, she switched tactics. She started provoking me, trying to make me lose my temper, hoping I'd do something rash that she could use against me. But I was prepared. Every word, every threat, I recorded. I knew every detail might prove useful. When the day of the hearing finally arrived, she looked confident again. She walked in well-dressed, wearing that arrogant smile I'd come to despise. But I was calm. I knew what I had. During the trial, my lawyer didn't waste any time. The recordings I'd made were damning. Her voice confessing to her crimes was unmistakable. She tried to dismiss it, claiming I had doctored the recordings, that it was all part of a conspiracy. But the judge didn't seem convinced. Then came the part that enraged me the most. My father was called to testify. He hesitated, but ultimately admitted he knew my sister was a troublemaker and had stolen things before. It was a heavy blow to her. But for me, it was a mix of relief and fury. Why hadn't he said anything sooner? Why let me rot in prison while he knew the truth? My mother, on the other hand, was a disaster. She tried to defend my sister, saying she was young and reckless, but would never do something so severe. When asked why she didn't believe me, she muttered something about how hard it was to choose between her children. It was pathetic. There I was 12 years later, with my life in ruins, while they were still protecting her. The most satisfying moment was when the recording was played. The courtroom fell silent, as everyone listened to my sister incriminate herself. Her expression completely changed. For the first time, she genuinely looked terrified. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she broke down. She started crying, claiming she didn't know why she had done it, that she was confused, that she never wanted me to go to prison. But I knew it was just another manipulation. So did the judge. In the end, she was convicted of perjury and fabricating evidence. She was ordered to pay damages, an amount she'll likely never be able to afford. For me, it was a small victory, but the lawsuit against the government was still ongoing, and I knew that would be a tougher battle. As I left the courtroom, I felt a sense of relief, but also a strange emptiness. None of this would bring back the years I had lost. I still didn't have a job, a home, or a clear future ahead of me. But at least my sister was finally facing the consequences of her actions. The days that followed were a mix of tension and anticipation. My sister was still living in my parents' house, and the atmosphere was unbearable. She avoided me, but I knew she was plotting something. And I was right. One night, I overheard a conversation between her and my mother. My sister was saying she would find a way to turn things around, that I hadn't won anything yet. There it was. She hadn't learned a thing. What she didn't realize was that I was prepared for the next step. I knew there were still more truths to uncover, more lies to expose. The trial was just the beginning. She had a history of crimes and deceit that extended far beyond what she had already admitted to. And I would make sure it all came to light, every last detail. For now, I'm here, waiting for her next move. But one thing is certain, my fight isn't over. She thinks she can keep getting away with it, but I won't stop until she pays for everything. There's still so much left to reveal, and I'm more determined than ever to see justice done. After weeks of living in that tense environment, something finally shifted. The notification came that the government had accepted my case against them. My lawyer was confident we'd secure a solid win, given the recordings and the government's glaring failure to properly investigate the case. This reignited something in me, the determination to end this chapter once and for all, not just with the government, but with my sister too. While the lawsuit against the government progressed, I began preparing my next move. I knew my sister would never change, and living under the same roof had become unbearable. Every time she crossed my path, she couldn't resist provoking me. Sometimes she'd smirk maliciously, as if she still had cards to play. Other times, she'd mutter under her breath that things wouldn't end like this. That's when I realized she still had something to hide. I started paying closer attention to her. The way she spent hours on the phone, how she disappeared for long stretches and returned with suspicious bags. I discovered she had a small locked room in the house, one we all assumed was empty. But something didn't feel right. It was time to find out. Using an excuse with my parents, I got the key to the room while my sister was out. When I entered, what I found confirmed my suspicions. The room was filled with boxes of items that clearly didn't belong to her. Clothes, electronics, even jewelry. She was still stealing. But this time, instead of hiding things in my bed, she stored them there. I took photos of everything, documenting each item and its condition. That night, I confronted my sister when we were alone. She was shocked when I showed her the photos. "You'll never change, will you?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. She tried to deny it, but she knew she was cornered. When she realized there was no way out, she lashed out at me verbally, saying I had always been the problem, that I deserved everything that happened to me. What she didn't know was that I'd already sent the photos to my lawyer and was recording everything she said in that moment. A few days later, with my lawyer's support, we handed all the evidence over to the police. They acted quickly. One morning, when she least expected it, the police knocked on our door. My mother panicked. My father stayed silent as always. But my sister? She screamed, cried, begged. But this time, there was no escape. They searched the room and confirmed everything I had reported. She was taken away in handcuffs, right in front of everyone. And as much as I hated to admit it, it was satisfying to see her finally face the consequences. The house became eerily quiet after that. My parents were inconsolable. Not for me, but for her. Still, I knew there was no other way. I needed justice. Meanwhile, the case against the government was also nearing its end. After months of hearings and statements, the judge finally delivered the verdict. The government was found guilty of negligence for convicting me without conducting a proper investigation. I was awarded a substantial settlement, money that would never bring back the years I lost but finally gave me a chance to start over. With the money, I decided to do something I had always wanted: leave that house. I found a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood and started planning the next chapter of my life. But I couldn't completely move on just yet. I knew my sister was still in custody, awaiting trial for her most recent crimes, and that gave me an odd sense of peace. The day of her trial arrived. I attended as a witness. When I walked into the courtroom and saw her sitting there, head bowed, I didn't feel pity but a bitter sense of satisfaction. She was finally where she belonged. The judge was relentless. The evidence was overwhelming, and her lack of remorse sealed her fate. She was sentenced to several years in prison, with no possibility of parole for a long time. As she was led away, she didn't look at me, but I knew she felt my gaze on her. My parents tried to maintain contact with me after everything, but I knew I needed to cut ties. They had never believed me when I needed them most, never stood up when everything was falling apart. And now, after everything, there was no room for them in my life. I severed all connections and focused on rebuilding what I had lost. Today, months after everything, I feel like I can finally breathe. My life is far from perfect, but for the first time in years, I feel like I'm in control. My sister is in prison, my parents are no longer part of my routine, and the settlement money has given me the chance to start over. But there's still an emptiness. A part of me knows that those lost years can never be recovered. What I don't know is if this is truly the end. My sister is like a shadow that always returns. And even in prison, I feel like it's not the last I'll hear of her. But for now, I'm at peace. And if she ever tries something again, I'll be ready. Because now, I know I'm stronger than she will ever be.